Today on the Hobby Grotto, we're painting a spooky Nighthaunt in a bold, simple colour scheme. Now I want these ghostly robes to be dark so they contrast with the colour of the Nighthaunt inside them, but black can sometimes be a bit dull, so I'm using Naggaroth Night as a base for a rich purple that will do a similar job to black, but be a bit more interesting colour-wise. I'm very fond of these Nighthaunt models. They have a great, simple, stylised quality to them, and I think they work well with a small palette of bold colours. Green works great with purple, but it has to be the right kind of green, and I'm starting with a base of Sybarite green here to lay the foundation, but I'm going to end up highlighting this up to a very pale green to create that magic ethereal look. If you watch some of my other videos, you'll know I'm a big fan of this colour. Mainly I just like the look of green ghosts though. There was a great old Magic the Gathering spirit token which I took some inspiration from. Some of you may remember that one. All the metal parts are going to get a base coat of 50/50 Rhinox hide and Iron Warriors to create a dirty metal, which is going to complement the style of the mini while not drawing attention away from the focal points. I use this mix a lot. It's a similar effect to GW's old Tin Bits paint. I really don't want this metal to be bright and distracting from the feature colours of green and purple, so I'm going to keep it quite dark overall with minimal highlighting. These models have a couple of details here and there which can be painted black, like the mace shaft. I often paint things like this brown, but for this kind of colour scheme, black is going to work better. It's a bit more stylised than a realistic wood brown, and it'll keep with that contrasty theme. Now that all the base coats are done, we can give the model a coat of Nuln Oil. I've also given the textured base a quick grey dry brush just to get that out of the way. This wash of Nuln Oil is going to darken all our colours and tie them all into the same visual setting. And these darkened base coats are what we're then going to use to build up our layers from. With the wash dry, it's time to do the layers and highlights, starting with the purple clothing. The first layer on the raised areas is our base Naggaroth Night. This will begin the transition over the darkened base. And we're going to be mixing this up to Genestealer Purple in a couple of layers. You can see my colours here. These 4 shades will be enough to get a nice blended effect on a model this size, but you can use as many layers as you want. The first blend is still mainly Naggaroth Night to keep it smooth, with a quarter Genestealer Purple. There are so many lovely folds on this stylized clothing, so it's really nice to paint in these thin layers. You can really see results coming up, and it's really quite simple. Now we're highlighting with a 50/50 mix, and you want to keep this to the edges to maintain the rich dark purple of the clothing. This is important to create a nice contrast with the green. It's easy to change the colour in an unfavourable way when doing too much highlighting, so always be aware of that. The final edge highlight is with pure Genestealer Purple. Now, there are lots of edges on these models, so I'm just picking and choosing where I add these to mainly enhance the movement and flow of the model. I want this highlight to be quite bright to work with the ethereal nature, so I have to be careful I don't end up with it looking too much like Tron. Alrighty, old mate Sybarite green for the skin. I mean, I'm calling it skin, it's not really skin, but you get the gist. This is the first highlight because the Nuln Oil has done a great job darkening the base coat. So paint it with that in mind and just concentrate on the raised areas. I often like to blend up to the Gorseblaster green, but I'm actually just going straight into it because all these areas are pretty small and they can take a more extreme highlight. Gorseblaster green is really going to make the miniature pop, but I'm not going too crazy with it because I don't want to lose, too much of the richness of the Sybarite green underlayers. For the final extreme highlights, I've mixed some white in with the Gorse Blaster green, and I'm just applying this to focal points like the face and fingers. If you ever go too light with the final highlight, don't worry, you can easily glaze them back down with your mid color. Better to try and push the highlights, I reckon. Metallic paints really don't need much in the way of highlights, but I always like to come back at the end with a brighter silver and just hit some of the details there. As a final touch, I've come back to the purple to add some more highlights because I felt the robes needed a bit more pop. This is a fairly white highlight, so I'm just adding a dot here and there on the extreme details. That's the Nighthaunt. I really love how this colour scheme turned out, and to be honest, I think I'm going to have to paint an army this way now. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time on the Hobby Grotto.